Hi, everybody. This is Tony Marcolini. Welcome to It May Interest You to Know. I'm joined today to my left with my sidekick and friend, former boxer Seamus McDonough.
Hi, everybody.
And we have a really special guest with us today who I'm quasi starstruck by having to get to interview today. You will know him from his early days back on Happy Days, but he's had an illustrious career and now is singing and touring. I would like to introduce to you Donny Most.
Hello. Hey, everybody. Hi, Tony. Hi, Seamus.
Hey, Donny.
Hi, Don. Well, thank you so much for being here. I know you're busy, and I think you're just getting back to touring now, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it's still a little slow getting back into, the normality, but some events have popped up. I just came back from one in Kenosha, Wisconsin, which was a lot of fun this last weekend, and I was doing a show here in Los Angeles a few weeks ago at the Catalina's Jazz Club. So I'm waiting for hopefully a lot more will come in. And I've actually been able to stay somewhat busy doing films over the last year. I've done 4 in the last year, which we could talk about later. But so I'm hoping that continues as well.
Okay, well, I'm going to take you all the way back to the beginning of your career. I know you probably get this a lot, but everyone's fascinated, of course, with Happy Days.
Yeah.
Do you remember auditioning for that role, or how did that happen? How did you get the role?
Oh yeah, I remember that pretty vividly. It was, one of those sort of, momentous type of events in your life. And I lived in New York. That's where I grew up, in Brooklyn. And
ooh, I'm from Brooklyn too.
Oh, is that right? What part of Brooklyn are you from?
Bensonhurst.
Oh, that's where my dad grew up. Yeah. So did you go to Lincoln High School?
I didn't. I actually, when I was about 3, we moved to Staten Island, where I predominantly, grew up. But we still went back to Brooklyn for family. Matter of fact, my dentist is still in Brooklyn. If that counts, a shout out to Dr. Ferriola and Marlo and Danielle.
Wow. That's a trek to go to the dentist. But anyway, yeah, I grew up in the Flatbush section of Brooklyn. And I'd started pursuing acting, pretty young, singing and acting. I was 13 and I was going to the school in Manhattan on like Saturdays. So I would take the subway in and go every Saturday. And then I actually I was doing singing more than acting those first few years, and singing in the Catskill Mountains one summer in a nightclub act when I was just turning 15 at all the hotels. But then I went to a more serious acting workshop, and then started really focusing on acting, and worked in New York. I did a lot of commercials. I did like 40 in the 4-year period while I was in high school and while I was going to college, and a little TV. But then I went out to Los Angeles originally it was just for the summer after my junior year in college. And I wanted to get, some contacts and a foothold so that maybe after graduation, I would maybe try LA, where more of the TV and film was being shot then. So I went out for the summer and I was able to land a couple of guest starring roles pretty quickly because I had an agent I had agents in New York, so I was able to get in through them an agent in LA. I had some momentum, and instead of going back to school for my last year, my agent convinced me to take 6 months off and keep the momentum going. And that's what happened. And I did. And, but then nothing happened for a few months. I had some auditions, but nothing, it wasn't getting any, it's coming close. And then I did get one other part, and I was mainly doing dramatic stuff. I did something on a police story where I played a mad bomber, and Emergency where I played a guy who became paralyzed in a car accident. So I was more interested in drama, ironically. But then after about 3-4 months, I get the call for Happy Days, and they said it's a new show about the 50s. And So I went in and met with the exec producers, Tom Miller and Ed Milkus. And then they called me back to do have another meeting. And I read for Garry Marshall this time in a room with about 15 other people, executives from Paramount Studios. And then they called me back again for a screen test. And that was the big one. That was the big day. And it was a long day. And I didn't think I was really upset. I didn't think I did great because a lot of things were going against me that day. It was really weird. A lot of things were going against me. And I felt, oh man, this too, I was bummed because what happened is, I got there all excited. They put me in this wardrobe, like the Letterman jacket and the 50s thing. And I'm all excited. Then you start looking around, you see 6 or 7 other guys in the same, having the same outfits. And then 2 of them were Ron Howard and Anson Williams. And they had already done a pilot of Happy Days almost 2 years earlier, but it didn't sell. Garry Marshall, who was the exec producer and creator, but it didn't sell. Then a year and a half later, American Graffiti comes out. It's a big hit about the 50s. And Grease on Broadway comes out, 50s. So then the executives at ABC were like, oh, wait a minute, didn't we have a show about the 50s? And they said to Garry, we want to do a new pilot. And they were worried that Ron and Anson now would be too old to play the high school kids. And Garry said no, but he had to screen test them, even though they had done the show already. And he screen tested them against all these other wanted, hopefuls, myself being one of them. And so I saw Ron and I didn't know what was going on with that. But then what happened was I had to wait to do my scene a long time. Finally did the scene and it went pretty well. I thought, okay, that went pretty well. But then they had everyone do an improvisation. There was a young, very attractive girl there, an actress, and they were going to have you do an improv where you're going out on your first date with her. So I said, okay, I was getting, but now I had to wait a long time. And because I was 20. Some of them were the girl, there was a couple that were under 18. They had to take them first. So I'm waiting and waiting. And then finally I get there. They had to let the girl go because she was only 17. So they go, meet Harvey Miller. You're doing your improv with him. And this was like a middle-aged guy with a beard. And I went, what? I'm doing my improv with him. What happened to Kathy? And they said, well, she had, we couldn't keep her. And so I had to do a completely different kind of improv. And I thought, oh man, I got the raw end of the deal and I didn't feel good about it. And then by the time, then they had everyone go through an interview on camera. They wanted to get to know you on camera. By the time they got to me, I was like, I know I've been there for like 7 hours and a feeling that I had no chance anymore. And I was kind of like, when you almost, maybe it was a good thing because you almost like lose that, oh, I got to please. And I was like mad and upset. And I was like, oh, what the hell, and maybe that works for me. I don't know. But I figured there's no chance. But they called my agent a couple of days later and said, no, he didn't get the part. Anson was doing Potsy again. But they liked his screen test so much that they want to create a role for him and make him a regular. And there was a small part in the pilot of a guy named Ralph. And they said, we'll make that, a regular. And so that's how that happened.
And I guess the rest is history there.
Yeah.
Did there come a point in time when you realized we really have something here?
I thought that pretty early. I remember, we were shooting the pilot in November of '73. And I'm meeting everybody for the first time. And then I'm starting to watch, I was hanging around, even if I wasn't in one of the scenes, because I wasn't in a lot of scenes in the pilot. I think I had 2 scenes, but I wanted to watch everybody. And I'm watching Tom and Tom Bosley, who I knew about, he'd been on Broadway, won the Tony and been in movies. And I was excited watching his scenes, and Ron, of course. And then this guy, Henry Winkler, who was playing this kind of quiet, you know, cool, mysterious kind of character. And I was just feeling, and then we did some stuff together, and I was feeling this chemistry, and I was watching everybody. And I remember calling my parents back in Brooklyn saying, I think this is going to sell. I think, you know, I think this is something, this could be pretty successful. I didn't imagine it would be the huge monster hit it became, but I felt like there was something pretty good there, and I had good feelings.
And you worked with so many big stars. I remember I think Jack Dodson played your dad.
Yeah.
On the show, right? And he was a Howard Sprague from the Andy Griffith Show.
Right.
And then did you used to watch Andy Griffith?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I used to watch it a lot, you know, when I was young. And so I knew who Jack was. And I mean, and not only did I watch Andy Griffith Show, the funny thing was that when I was young, a lot of people called me Opie.
The red hair.
The red hair, I was about the same age as Ron, and we kind of almost looked a little alike. People call me Opie. I used to have people come up to me thinking I was him, and strangers coming up to me. I'm 7, 8 years old, and people are coming up to me. So you can imagine how bizarre it was for me now meeting Ron years later, and I'm going to be working with him. I mean, it was surreal, you know?
Of course. And then, of course, Jack Dodson played Howard Sprague for years. The show.
Yeah, and then,
great
then
actor.
They cast him as great actor, great guy. And he was so funny when they cast him as my dad, the optometrist. And we had some funny scenes together. And then a couple of interesting dramatic scenes. There was a big show for my character where my parents were going through a divorce. And so it got into a little bit of a different, you know, a different tenor, a different timbre, so to speak.
And, you know, one of my favorite episodes of Happy Days is the one where it's a storyline for you, the character. And I don't know her real name, so I'm going to use her character name. She played Leather Tuscadero. And you wind
Susie
up
Quattro. Susie Quattro.
And you wind up on a date together, and you're both trying to be different people than who you are. And it's kind of a touching episode. Yeah,
it was a really nice episode. And Susie was great. She was, and still is. She was a sort of rock and roller, you know. I think she played the bass or the guitar, singer, and she's still doing it. She's, I think, living in London. And it was a very nice episode. Yeah, a lot of people responded to that. I hear from people a lot asking about where's Leather, you know, where's Leather Tuscadero.
Well, and you must have been, I think you were still there, right? When Robin Williams came on the show, started off there, was Mork.
Yes. Yeah, that was a pretty, you know, amazing kind of another momentous event. I remember they had a lot of trouble casting that role. The script, we felt it was one of the worst scripts that we had ever had. And everyone was going, oh my God, this could be a disaster. And they finally hired somebody, and he quit because, you know, I guess he was work. He quit. And then what are they going to do? And a couple of people, I think it was Penny Marshall's sister, Ronnie Hallen, I think, had seen a comedian at the comedy club, and somebody else, maybe Al Molinaro. They suggested, there's this guy, he would be great. You should see him. And they found out who he was. They brought him in. It was Robin, and Robin blew them away in the audition. And I remember arriving on the set on a Thursday because they didn't cast him till like Wednesday night. You know, we shoot on Friday night, and, you know, we start rehearsing Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So his first day is on Thursday, and I didn't have to be at the soundstage till later because my scenes were not going to be in the early part of the rehearsal. So I get there a little later, and I walk onto the soundstage, and there's like this electricity, this palpable buzz that I'm feeling, and people coming up to me. Wait till you see this guy. He's unbelievable. He's like, you can't believe him, you know. So I walk over, and I'm watching them do a scene, and then I'm seeing Robin for the first time playing this alien, and it was like he was an alien. I mean, because Robin was like from another planet. was like perfect role to introduce him. Because I found out after that, in his stand-up comedy act, he used to do bits about an alien, and he would do funny sounds and do crazy things. And he, you know, he had a mind like nobody and could come up with things out of nowhere. So he was using some of his stuff probably from his act, and then also coming up with new stuff. But everybody was like freaking out. And he made that part, you know, where it could have been something really bad, it turned into something great. And there was such buzz that all these network executives from ABC were at our show that Friday night to watch. And then by Monday or Tuesday, I hear he's got his own series. It was like that quick.
Well, I mean, that's like being there when Genius is first getting ignited, right? I mean, you know, like right at the beginning.
Yeah, it was amazing. And then to watch, you know, the evolution of his career was quite something.
And you had Jerry Paris was your director for the majority of the show, right?
Yeah, Jerry was a comedic genius, a mentor to me. He was almost like, I was very tight with Jerry. He was kind of like my uncle. You know, he loved what, you know, my part was pretty small in the beginning, and I would come up with ideas to try to do something a little more, build it a little bit, enhance it. I'd come up with these ideas, and I'd show him, he'd really like them, and then it'd spark him, and he'd come up with something based on that, and then I'd go with something further, and we'd do it, and the writers were loving it, and Garry was really liking it, so they'd start writing it, stuff for me, more like that. And so Jerry and I, you know, worked together great, and like I said, he was sort of like a mentor, uncle to me. But he was the guy, a driving force for that show, because he was there. You know, Garry was the creator and headed the writing and oversaw that. But Jerry was with us every day, you know, rehearsing, shooting, probably shot 90% of the episodes.
Well, and for our listeners who don't recognize the name, I mean, he was on Dick Van Dyke for years, the Dick Van Dyke Show, right? He directed a lot of their episodes too, but he also starred in it, right? He was, I forget his character name.
Jerry Helper.
Jerry Helper, that's it. That's it. Jerry Helper. And he played the neighbor, right? He was married to Billy.
Right. He was great. Yeah. And he did direct most of those episodes. Won the Emmy his first year directing that show. So, and people would also recognize him. He was a very fine actor, and he did some big movies. He did the movie Marty with Ernest Borgnine. He played Marty's brother-in-law, and that won some Oscars. And he was in the Caine Mutiny with Humphrey Bogart, and you know, and the Wild Ones with Marlon Brando. And, you know, was in Class with Marlon Brando. I think Marilyn Monroe was in that class. You know, I mean, he had quite a history and incredible stories. And he was, he helped all of us immensely. I think you asked Ron Howard, and, you know, how much he learned from Jerry as a director and how much he was influenced by him. We all did, you know, because we've all done some directing since the show, and we learned a lot from Jerry, that's for sure, and Garry.
Sure, and Penny Marshall, that was when audiences first became familiar with her. And of course, you know, she went on to direct and be a major influence in Hollywood. But you knew her in the beginning as Laverne, right?
Yeah, they brought her and Cindy Williams on our show as guest stars for a 2-part episode. And it was really good. Penny actually had been on a semi-regular on Garry's other show before that, The Odd Couple, with Jack Klugman and Tony Randall. So Penny was in that. But you know, it was a supporting role. Wasn't in all the episodes. But now, you know, she came in as Laverne and with Cindy, and the episode went over so well that then they got their own show, the spinoff, and from Happy Days. And then, of course, you know, went on to become big hit. And as you alluded to, a great movie career for Penny as a director.
Now, there's a photo that I've seen of John Lennon on set with.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
Oh my God! Hold on a second. Anson was just calling me. Anson Williams was just calling me.
You should come on.
Wait, what was the question again? John.
Yeah, I've seen a photo of John Lennon and the Happy Days cast, and I don't recall him being in any particular episodes. So
no.
I assume he came to visit.
Yeah, that was amazing. It was about this. It was the first season that we were shooting. I think the 6th episode, February of '74, and it was so funny. Anson, who was just trying to call, comes up. He went to get some coffee near the stage door, and he comes over and he says, "There's a guy who just walked on to the soundstage. Looks a lot like John Lennon." And we're like, yeah, right. John Lennon came over to visit, kind of laughing. And then all of a sudden, this guy walks closer and he's with a young boy. And we're going, "Oh my God." And we're like, our jaws are to the floor. And we realize it's freaking John Lennon. Nobody knew he was coming. He just walks onto our set, And I guess, and he was with his son, Julian, who was like 9 years old. And I guess Julian has liked Happy Days, and John was a fan of the music of the 50s, and they decided to come over. I think he was taking Julian around, and they were going to go to Disneyland and stuff like that. And they stopped off at the studio to meet us. So, and he hung out with us for hours and watching us rehearse. He was doing all these little drawings, doodles, and handing them out to the crew. Anson later would say, "Why the hell didn't we get some of those doodles?" But it was incredible. He was so low key and soft spoken and humble, and it was, I still can't believe that it happened. That was one of those things where it's like you pinching yourself and, did I dream this? It was crazy.
I know that on the show, you and Ron Howard and Anson Williams had a band. Were you actually performing in those scenes?
No, the music, I used to play piano a little bit. So, but we were faking it, it was pre-recorded, and we would kind of fake like we were playing, but we did all the singing, and Anson had done a musical theater before that. And he had gotten to Garry early and convinced him that they should try to form a band. And so we'd have the music, and Anson said he could sing, and Garry gave him a shot, and it worked out. So then they started doing, and then I was like wanting to see, because I'd been singing, like I said, at the nightclubs 5 years earlier. And, but Garry wouldn't, I would do backup, and every once in a while he let me do a song, but he didn't want me to be like, he wanted Potsy to be the singer in the band because he had established that and didn't want to change it. So it was a little frustrating, but we did sing, all of the backup. And then, like I said, I did a couple of episodes. There were a few episodes where I did sing a song on Valentine's, Valentine's special. I sang My Funny Valentine. And then there was a dance marathon show where I sang the song. So, but
I just saw that in reruns just the other day, actually.
Oh, the dance marathon?
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I think I texted you. I saw I was like, I didn't know you sang from back then.
Oh, I missed that text. Somehow I missed it. I didn't see that. Sorry, Tony.
No, this is the wildest thing. I mean, of course, that's your career now, but I always assumed it was something you moved into later. And so when I heard you as the lead singer, performing in that episode, I was like, wow, he sang from back then. I mean, that totally escaped.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Like I said, I had been pursuing that since I was like 13. Started singing along to, when I was 9, singing along to Al Jolson records, because I saw the Jolson story on TV. And I was, at 9, I became a huge Jolson fan. Then I discovered all the great singers of the Great American Songbook, and listening to WNEW every night going to sleep, listening a DJ named William B. Williams, who played all the greats like Sinatra and Nat King Cole and Ella Fitzgerald and all the greats. And then I saw Bobby Darin in a movie, and I became a huge Bobby fan. And actually,
who wasn't?
but Bobby beyond the rock and roll, because that was a means to an end for him. That's not what he was really about. And I saw him at the Copacabana when I was 18 doing his nightclub act. And so I started singing to Bobby's records, you know, and in my show, I definitely do some Darren material, you know, I sort of talk about him a lot.
When can we see your show, Donny?
You know, we're talking to some people in the UK right now.
Yeah.
I know you're not in the UK, but I'd love to bring it up to San Francisco where you are. I haven't performed up there yet. Been to New York and Chicago and Michigan and, you know, a lot of different places in near Dallas and of course LA. But we're talking about a tour in Italy in early 2022 and talking to, there's a big band called the Denmark Street Big Band based in London, and we're talking about maybe doing a tour with them. So I'm hoping all that comes to pass, and yeah, and around the States too. I'd love to. I think there's a Feinstein's up in San Francisco that would be good fun to do, and so we'll see. You know, it's all kind of opening up hopefully soon, and I can't.
What's the name of your act? What's the name of it?
Well, I usually call it. I've named it after a CD that I put out called Mostly Swinging. D Most, Mostly Swinging. The CD is out with a great 18-piece band and sometimes more with strings and great LA jazz musicians. You know, it swings. So people can check that out on Amazon or iTunes. And I'm actually in the middle of doing a new CD with a producer in Nashville, Tony Mantor, and it's coming along great. And I'm going there in a few weeks to finish, and then we'll put it out. We're doing some jazz standards again, but not a big band. It's a more contemporary jazz kind of feel, and mixing in some cool songs from the 60s and 70s, R&B and rock, like Smokey Robinson material and Bill Withers, and mixing in some other stuff. So I'm really excited. It's coming along really well.
It's so obvious that you're so excited and upbeat about this what you're doing. It's so exciting.
Yeah, it is. You know, because I put the music aside for so long, and I still loved it, but I was concentrating on acting, and also in the 70s when Happy Days was hot in the early 80s, that kind of music was not really in vogue. It was sort of passé almost, because you know, it was like your parents' music or grandparents' music.
Yeah.
But then the Great American Songbook and the standards started coming back in late 80s and 90s with, you know, Harry Connick and Natalie Cole.
My favorite.
Yeah, you know, when he did It Had to Be You and When Harry Met Sally. And then Natalie Cole came out with that great album dedicated to her dad, Nat, and Diana Krall doing the standards, and more people, you know. So I realized about 7, 8 years ago, I said, if I'm ever going to do the music again, I better do it now, you know, not getting younger. And so it is exciting to me to be doing it at this stage in my life. And I feel like people say I'm just getting better and better. And I feel that's true. When I did the show a few weeks ago, there was a publicist who's seen my show like 4 times. And she said, the last show I saw you at, I told you it was the best show. And she said, no, tonight was the best show. Now you're even better. You know, you're sounding even better. And what are you doing? You know, I said, I don't know. But I guess the fact that, you know, I'm doing it more and more, and it's really fun to feel the growth and whatnot. And so we'll see what happens. But you know, it's not like I want to give up acting by any means. And in some ways, the last few years I've been getting some of the most exciting roles and diverse types of roles than I've had, you know, in my entire career. You know, I mean, in the last year and a half, I went from playing a defense attorney, a pastor, to a polygamist, to a prison guard, to the CEO of a big company, to a king, to a career and then a career criminal. So, you know, and then the prison guard I mentioned. So I love that. You know, that's what I love about acting. What attracted me playing all different kinds of roles, people different from myself, and the wider the variety, the better. And so that's just been, I've done 4 movies, you know, in the last year during the pandemic, which I was very grateful for. So I don't want to give that up by any means. I feel like it's I'm kicking into like a new phase in the acting career. And I think as you know, getting older has helped, because it gave me a little more separation from Happy Days and the role of Ralph, because it was hard breaking away from that.
Sure.
It was very difficult.
Yeah.
It was frustrating as hell.
Yeah.
You know, I wouldn't even get to audition for things, and they would, you know, I would, and when I would audition and the director would want me, and maybe the producer was too uptight about the Happy Days and couldn't let go of it. And, you know, it was one thing after another. And, you know, you're pulling your hair out of your head because you want to have a career that goes beyond just that one show. So there were some tough times, but, you know, perseverance is what you have to just keep plugging away. And it seems like it's paying off. Yeah. I hope it can, you know, you just hope it continues, you know, knock on wood and all that sort of thing.
And if I could just on the same line, one more thing about that. I was, my career, I used to be a professional boxer.
Right. That's what I heard.
When that ended, there's a phenomenon called PAS, professional athlete syndrome. Like when the career is over, their lives fall to bits. And I'm sure, I mean, like you're such a famous person, but Happy Days was such a phenomenon, you know, and then when it was over, did you have a come down? Was it like, what do I do now? Was that the good old days? Did you have that happen?
Well, fortunately for me as an actor, you know, your career doesn't necessarily have to end because of, you know, age, so to speak. So I could theoretically act into my 80s and maybe even 90s. So that's makes it a little bit easier than what you went through, because the athletes, you know, there's a time limit, and it's got, you know, the body and all that's going to not be able to maintain at that level. But in another way, it was similar, because the career can be over because people are you're locked so into, and we've seen it happen to other actors who have been on shows and then they never really do anything after. This was especially more so back in the day when there were only 3 networks, as opposed to today where people do television and they go from television to film back to television, and there's not the stigma about it. Back then it was very hard to go from TV to film, and you could get, you know, today to get so associated with a role is harder because there's 100 channels to choose from, or platforms. And so but back then a career could be over at a young age when that show's over. And that's what I was sort of facing, you know, is now it didn't come to an end. I left the show after the 7th season. My contract was up, and I made the decision not to renew. The same thing that Ron Howard did that same year. And the rest of the show cast continued. But, you know, I felt like I was getting so tied to the role, and I thought I got to move on and start making a move, you know. But it was tough. And there were times, you know, I thought, is it over? And, you know, and do I give up? And I went through many of those sort of soul-searching moments. But I was able to keep moving forward somehow. I'd do some theater, you know, and I told my agent, I don't want to do television for a while after I left the show. I only want to do films and theater. Well, as I said, to go from TV to film was almost impossible. And I went 6 months with a big agent, and I couldn't get one audition for a film, you know, or 9 months, you know, and then I finally got maybe one, but, you know, that was it for another year, you know. So I finally said, okay, well, I'm going to do some television. And, but, you know, I don't want to, you know, bore you and get into that too much, but I think I pretty much stated, you know, the challenge that it presented. And, but luckily, you know, like I said, I kept moving, and then I even did some directing. I'd started directing some theater, which led to me directing a few films, which was really great for me. And then, I don't know, in some way, maybe that opened it up, and then all of a sudden, you know, I started getting some acting work again, and in different things, and some independent films where I played something very different. I played a semi-alcoholic ex-ball player who's a semi-alcoholic now and estranged from his kid.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, and people were surprised to see me in that. And, you know, little by little, I did a Star Trek Voyager where I played the villain, you know, and, you know, and then I did Glee. I played the dad, a recurring role of the dad to the character Emma, Jamie Mays' character. And I think that helped, you know, and other guest starring roles, The Crow, where I played a psychiatrist. So yeah, it like you start cracking away at that, you know, and now like and this film that I just mentioned, where I played a pastor, I went to a big festival, and it was nominated for a bunch of awards, and I was nominated for Best Supporting Actor in a Feature Film, and I wound up and I won that night. So you know, and then what happened was I got an offer like 2 weeks later, because the casting director for another movie was at the festival and saw me get up and do my acceptance speech to winning Best Supporting Actor, and then called the producer and said, I think I got the right guy for your movie. And then I got that, you know, and this is where I'm playing a career criminal. So, you know, you never know where it's going to come from. And you just got to keep the belief, and the belief is so important.
You did
in yourself.
You did kind of, I think it's an indie, it was an indie project, a short film with Anson Williams, not that long ago, that I saw. And I mean, I couldn't believe what a good villain you were. I mean, you were really unlikable in the role.
Yeah. That was a great piece. Incredibly well-written piece by Fred Stropel, who's an award-winning New York playwright. And it's kind of like it was from one of his one-act plays, and we did it, you know, it's 25 minutes. And as a matter of fact, as we speak, the exec producer of that, who contacted Anson and I about it, who lives in New Jersey, he told me he's just entered it in a bunch of festivals. It just got accepted into the New York Cinema Awards Festival, and it just got accepted into the New York Long Island Film Festival. And, you know, he just sent it out to a bunch of places. So it's probably it's funny that you mentioned it, because it's probably going to get out there in the festival circuit now. And so that could be good, you know, you don't know what that's going to do.
It was, you know, really different to see the two of you in roles that obviously weren't your Happy Days characters. It's a pretty intense piece. Even though you're the villain, I don't know that Anson Williams' character is all that much more likable, even though... Right. Even though empathetic, you know, even though you have to have sympathy for him, I still didn't think either one of you were terribly likable. But you're the true villain in the piece, and it was really weird to see you both in that light.
Yeah, that was kind of the impetus, the idea that David Levin, the producer, had. He was thinking of it as a pilot for an anthology series, where it was called Take Two. And what it would be is each week you would take two a very well-known duo that you loved seeing together in, whether it be a show like Cheers or Friends or whatever show it is, and you put them in something totally different that you would not expect to see them in. And like, this is exactly what you're saying was your reaction when you saw the two of us. And so that's why it's called Take Two. So you know that these two people are going to want to see them, and they had good chemistry together, so they should work together well, and with really good material by Fred Stropel, this playwright. You know, they could do things that you wouldn't normally see them in or expect to see them in, but if they're good actors, they would love that material, and it could be really good. And who knows, maybe we'll still launch as a series in that format. I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, I'll put links below, for people who want to check that out. It's definitely worth seeing. It's a little chilling.
It's a little dark. It's a little dark.
It's a little chilling. But definitely worth watching.
But it's also, but there's humor in it. It's dark humor, but there's some of it's very funny.
Yeah.
It's not just, I mean, when I'm telling him, I was supposed to give him my kidney, he's on dialysis and I was going to donate a kidney. And then when I tell him I'm not doing it now because I got a better offer.
And he's like your brother. I mean, yeah.
This is my brother. I mean, it's so funny stuff.
Do you keep in touch with the cast? I mean, clearly you keep in touch with Anson since he was trying to reach you just now.
Yeah. Anson and I are so tight. We're like best friends, and it's more tight even now than that before. And Henry and Ron and I stay in touch, not as much because everyone's busy. Ron's in London right now. He just did a film in Australia and they're doing post-production, I think, in London. Henry's very busy on, he's doing the show Barry. But, we stay in touch. Marion, I saw Marion just a couple of months ago, Marion Ross. So it's great. It's kind of like family.
I have to ask you, what was your most, and I ask this to everyone because I find it interesting. What was your most memorable moment on set for Happy Days?
People ask me questions like that, and I really can't come up with one most memorable. It's impossible for me. The shooting the pilot was one of the most memorable. It's indelible in my mind because it was so sort of, it was just so the beginning of when it all started. And beyond that, I mean, there's so many great moments. What I usually tell people is what I remember most is, the camaraderie, the relationships that we had, how great it was as a working relationship and personal relationships, how much the collaboration that we all had amongst ourselves and with the writers and the director, so I miss that. And that's what I remember most. And some of the conversations we'd have, before a scene or before shooting, those are the things I remember.
Did you keep a souvenir from the set?
I wish I had, but I didn't know that my last season, the 7th season, at the end of that season, I didn't know it was going to be my last. It wasn't until, we started talking about negotiating a new contract where, I started thinking about it during the off season and I wasn't sure. I mean, I have to tell you, and I told this story for the first time about a week ago, and I never talked about this, but I had reasons for wanting to leave, because of being so typecast, and I wanted to try to break away. I also felt the scripts were not at the caliber that they were. It was starting the last year and a half of the show. There was some good episodes, but some that I really thought it was not up to par. And playing the same character for 7 years, and I wanted, that was not even who I was in real life, and I wanted to break away. Those were all very strong reasons. So, but what happened was when they came to me and they were offering me now, because I was a new contract, the biggest raise that I had been offered. It was a significant raise. And I said to my manager, here's what I want to do. Tell them I'll forget the raise. I don't want the extra bonuses or the extra raise. I'll do it for the same money I've done it for, but guarantee me a TV movie up, on ABC, or a supporting role in a feature at Paramount, because Paramount Studios was the production company, ABC was our network. I'll do it without the raise. And they wouldn't guarantee me that. They wouldn't do it. I said, oh, okay, it's time for me to go.
Yeah, it was probably a really big decision at the time for you.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be hard, I think, for anyone to be faced with making that decision. But wanting to, being creative, and that's one of the things we like to talk about on the podcast a lot, the creative process. And I think if you're somebody who likes to create in whatever that form is, a photographer, a writer, an actor, I think you need an outlet and a place to, continue reinventing yourself and for uniqueness.
And growing. And yeah, reinventing, growing, and pushing the envelope and giving yourself a chance to do different things, not just one thing, one note, so to speak, So I felt like, okay, if they can give me that, then I get a chance to show people something very different on a movie or a TV movie, and that will help me fight what I'm up against.
Yeah. But
they wouldn't do it, which is pretty surprising. It was pretty surprising, and in retrospect, it gets me. I'll get emotional. I'll start reliving all that. So that's probably better. I don't talk about it too much.
Well, they wanted you to stay Ralph because you were so good at it. I mean,
right.
They wanted that to continue. Yeah. Was it a coincidence that Ron Howard left at the same time? Did you guys talk, or was it just a coincidence?
Well, we talked a lot. We weren't, during the off season, though, we weren't talking that much. I didn't know. I wasn't like, oh, you're planning on doing this. I think at one point we realized we were both making that move, and he was doing it because he wanted to pursue directing. And the funny thing is, I think he asked them the same thing, if they would guarantee him a chance to direct, a TV movie or something like that. And they wouldn't. So his attorney went to NBC and said, hey, you can have Ron if you guarantee him a directing thing. And NBC said, yeah, hell yeah. So Ron left and got a chance to direct a couple of TV movies on NBC. And then, well, the rest is, history in terms of him becoming one of the biggest directors in Hollywood.
Sure, you guys should all work together again too. I'm surprised you haven't, and it's been a lot of years.
Well, he did cast me in Ed TV, which was great. The movie with Matthew McConaughey and
I didn't see that.
Woody Harrelson, and yeah, it's a good movie. It's very good. Called Ed TV. You could check it out. He cast me. I had a nice supporting role in that. But yeah, that was back in 1998. Yeah, it'd be nice. I'm like Ron. I'd love for the phone to ring and Ron say, "Hey, I got a really good part for you." Because I was working with him when he was trying to prove he could direct. He came to me and said, in the third season of Happy Days, he said, I want to make a film, an experimental film where I can show that I can direct. He's been in the business since he's 3.5.
Yeah.
And so he had an idea for a story. He said, would you develop it with me? And I'd like you to play the lead character. And this whole experimental way of doing it, I said, I love that idea. Let's do it. And we did. And then we shot on weekends. We were doing Happy Days during the week, and we were shooting this movie on weekends. His parents were in the crew, and it was like a little small experimental film, friends in the crew, no money. And about halfway through the film, he got a call, and he got his chance to direct a Roger Corman movie, Grand Theft Auto, I think it was. So I was working with him in that capacity. So I'd love for him to call me again and go, hey, let's do, I got a good part for you. It'd be nice.
Like a high school reunion, you tend to fall right back in, when you think of the people that you were young with. I would think that it would be so easy when you guys do get put in situations together, like to just feel at ease.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's like, there was no time that has passed between you. It's like, when you see family that you might not see, cousins or in a couple of years or something, and then you see them, and if you're close, it's like you fall right back into it, without missing a step.
Is it funny? I find that that's more true about people I know from when I'm young, and that there seems like no time passes, whereas people I've met later in life, I don't get that same sensation, even if
Yeah, that's interesting. I think Yeah, I think I can relate to that. I feel that it's a similar experience that I've had. Maybe, you know, when you're younger, I don't know. I don't know why it impresses upon you more than later in life. And, you know, there's something about those old friends, you know, the ones that you with from way back that you'll never lose, that'll always be there.
Which has me interested in just asking you, Don, you're so famous from this show, and is there anything you do to keep, like, you're so grounded and so personable and so likable?
Oh, thank you.
Is there anything you do to keep your feet on the ground, because you're just so?
You know, I credit that probably a lot to, you know, my family when I was growing up, my parents, my grandparents, growing up in Brooklyn, you know, and the friends that I had and in college. And I think that has a lot to do with it. And because I
they probably treated you just the same. Am I right? They treated you didn't get any extra,
yeah.
no passes. You were still.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's a big, I feel very grateful. I was very lucky in that regard. I remember, and also having Ron Howard as a kind of an example, setting an example, because he had been a star since he was very young. And now here we are working with him. And he was, because of his parents, was so grounded and down to earth. And if he, you know, how could we start getting all stuck up and full in our heads? And when we're watching this guy not being that way, and he's been a star, you know, and so he set a great example. And the two people you mentioned, Jerry Paris and Garry Marshall, were mentors and helped keep our feet on the ground too. They, you know, they would give us words of advice in certain situations, or, you know, Jerry would talk to us and he'd keep us in line, you know, so that we don't get, because you can get seduced into the whole fame and all that. And I'm sure we did to some degree, but I feel like I was getting sucked in, and I had made a conscious decision to like pull myself back. You know, there was a moment when I was sitting in my house and I realized I was losing touch with reality. And, you know, it was like a conscious effort. I said, I got to get my feet back on the ground, you know?
And to be aware of that could happen to you. I mean, my 10 minutes of fame, I actually fought Holyfield at one stage in my career. And you can really, you know, your head can take off, you know, and the phenomenon I mentioned earlier, professional athlete syndrome, most professional athletes who have been really famous, not even really aware of that. And I know it exists in the fame with the acting and all kinds of celebrities. And it is like a science. There's a science behind it, what causes it. But there's also needs to be a recovery from it, because you could just go slip down the rabbit hole. And
Absolutely. I often say to people, they almost need like an acting class to have a, you know, like you need a section of abnormal psychiatry class.
Yes.
And so I think it's the same thing for the athletes. You need like coaching, you need a therapist because it is abnormal psychiatry, and to some degree, because you're living in a world that's a little abnormal. It's not, doesn't go by the same rules or the same, you know, the same sort of mores and customs and everything that most people do and that you used to do. And all, you know, they need to teach that or coach people that in athletics and acting, because that's where it happens the most. The adulation, you know, the hero worship and all of that sort of thing.
And real quick, I have a great friend in an actor also, and his family is really famous. He's famous too. His name is Joe Estevez. I don't know if you know him.
Isn't he brothers with Marty?
The Sheen family, yes. Yeah. Joe is a great friend of mine, and he has helped me so much. And so you remind me how grounded Joe is also. Just, you know, so much his name. Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
I never met Joe, but I've heard it. You know, I know some people who know him and really like him, and you know, mentioned him to me. So maybe one day I'll get to meet him or work with him.
Yes.
So there's a few more things. If you can stay with us just a couple more minutes. I know you have some time constraints, but can I ask you just a few more questions?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. One, I wanted to know, your trademark on the show was Hawaii, Hawaii, Hawaii. That was a big thing.
That was one, but there was another one.
The other one was I
still
got it. I still got it.
I still got it. I still got it.
Now I have to know, were they your creations or did a writer create that for you?
Okay. Hawaii, Hawaii, Hawaii. That was because that was a saying that Arthur Godfrey used to do. Arthur Godfrey was.
I did not know this.
He was on TV. He had a show and radio and TV, and he became famous. He might have been a journalist before that. I'm not sure. I can't remember, but he was pretty well known. And that was his thing of Hawaii, Hawaii, Hawaii. And then, one of the episodes, they gave it to me, because like Ralph was having fun with it. Like, he was imitating Arthur Godfrey. And then it was like he was adopting it, and for a while it caught on, and they would have me do that once in a while, repeat it, and somebody just came up to me at this event I was at and did it for me. Did the Hawaii, so I was cracking up. But the other one, the I Still Got It, that happened because, as I told you, Jerry was a comedic genius. And Jerry, you see, I wasn't really like Ralph. I was never the guy in high school who was trying to be funny. I was the exact opposite. I was like a good audience for my friends, the straight man for my friends. But I knew people like that. But Jerry was like that. Jerry loved to crack us all up and score a joke and do something. And when he would get a really good rise from all of us, a good reaction, he would say that. He'd say, I still got it, something like that. And then so one day it hit me. We were about to do an episode. We were about to shoot in front of an audience. And I'm looking over the scene, and Ralph is like going to tell a joke to the guys in Arnold's. And I went up to Ron, because it would affect him. I said, Ron, get ready, because I'm going to do something that's not in the script when we shoot this, in front of the audience. And he said, okay, So I tell the joke, and then, no one knew it was coming, and they laugh, and I went, I still got it, just like that. And then, I still got it. And they went nuts. Jerry went crazy. And the audience loved it, even though they didn't understand the story, but they just thought it was funny. And then from that point on, they were like, the writers started putting it in for me, and some other places I would decide to put it in. And then they come up with something like, we were in some dire situation, and I say something, and then I go, even in danger, I still got it. Or even in,
Yeah.
So, and then what was killer for me was that years later, all of a sudden, I'm like watching somebody on TV in an interview, an interview show, late night, or I can't remember. And somebody said a joke and they laughed, and the guy said, I still got it, and I was like, holy shit. And then I started hearing it like in the vernacular of people out there in, in the universe. And it's like, wow, to think that I know it came from, because this is 20 years, I never heard it. And 20 years later, people are starting to say it, because it started creeping into the zeitgeist, something like that.
Well, you definitively, influenced pop culture for generations, for sure.
I guess. I mean, that was crazy when I heard that. It was like, whoa, because you don't realize the impact that, it's hard to understand and comprehend the impact of it. How many people are watching, how many have watched, and it's beyond your capacity to really understand. Now after years of maybe doing some personal appearances and seeing people's reaction, hearing their stories, and you start to get a better understanding of it now and an appreciation of it, and it's pretty impactful when people tell you stories about how the show helped them get through tough times, or they were sick or had emotional issues with their parents or whatever, and how they would, you know, look forward, and it was an escape for them. You hear these stories over and over, and it's like, wow. And then, of course, just the people just had joy from it. And, you know, it wasn't necessarily something that was helping them through crises, but just the sheer joy and how much they loved the characters and the show. You know, it was hard to, when we were younger, I think it was hard to, in the beginning, to really grasp it.
Sure. Some things you need age to appreciate, I think.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree.
Also, you voiced cartoons, which I think not a lot of people know.
Yeah.
Right? You voiced cartoons for a while.
I did for a while, yeah. The first one, the Happy Days cartoon? Might have been. There was a Happy Days cartoon, and I was in that. But the one that was, you know, people know me the most from in terms of the voice acting was a series called Dungeons and Dragons. And I think it ran like 3 seasons, but it became like a real sort of cult thing. And, you know, I get so many people saying, oh, we loved, you know, Dungeons and Dragons and your character, Eric, the Cavalier. And so that was fun. It was really, I enjoyed that a lot. Then I did another one called Teen Wolf based on the movie. And that was a couple of seasons, and that was fun. I would like to do some more of that, you know, like for movies, you know, animation or something. I think that would be fun. So
Family Guy? Did I read that you did Family Guy too? Or is that?
Yes, it's a very funny episode, and it was me doing my own voice. It was just one scene. It's very quick, but it's a very funny. You can see it on YouTube if you put in Family Guy, Donny Most or Don Most. You'll see the scene. It's hysterical. It's I forget Stewie, and I don't know the other character's name. They're in some like forest, and all of a sudden they look and they see, oh, isn't this the spot where once a year Donny Most rises from the mist, or something like that? which is I think it's right out of Brigadoon, the show. It's takeoff of Brigadoon, and is Donny Most rises from the mist or something, and they say something, and then all of a sudden you hear the song start, which is, I think the music might be from Brigadoon, and it's this thing, this whole choir starts singing, Donny Most, Donny Most, this whole thing, and then all of a sudden you see my character rising from the mist. and they do this beautiful, beautiful rendition of this song of my name, and then I get to the top and the song ends, and I go, actually, it's Don Most now. And then I start going, back down. It's hysterical. It's very, very funny.
I love it. That's classic. Yeah. I'm going to check that out.
Yes, YouTube, check it out.
Also, now you have a Christmas CD. Am I correct? Is it out already, or?
Well, yeah, it came out a few years ago. It was around the same time, little after I released Mostly Swinging, with the same producer, Willie Murillo, and he arranged, great arranger of the big band charts. And this one we did big band Christmas tunes. It's called Swinging Down the Chimney Tonight. Swinging Down the Chimney. And it's fun. It's, you know, some songs, you'll know all the songs. So yeah, people can get that too on the same Amazon and iTunes, I guess. And the new one that I'm going to finish in about a month, I don't have a time frame for when it'll be out. You know, it might not be till early 2022, possibly. We'll see.
Well, I'm a tremendous jazz fan, and I've been listening to your clips more and more.
Oh, great!
As you've been putting them out, and it's fantastic stuff. I mean,
thank you.
I mean, beautiful stuff. So, I mean, we're going to put a link. It's definitely worth, the CD that's out already is definitely worth buying. And your music, I just love it. I mean, I started off when I was young, I was into, I guess, what was popular at the time. And then exactly what you were saying earlier, when Harry Connick did the When Harry Met Sally movie, and he came out with the CD, I kind of fell in love, I guess, with jazz and the swing music. And so That's what I like. That's what I follow. So when you started doing it, I said, "Oh, this is going to be cool." I told you earlier before we went on air, I was sorry I missed you. You were here in Jersey. Next time you're back, I definitely want to come see you.
Great, great. Yeah, well, hopefully I'm going to, I have a lot of different, my manager and some agents are out there trying to, get me booked in, whether it be performing arts centers and theaters and other venues around the country. And I'm hoping they start coming in because I love doing it so much. And more, people are expressing an interest. They want to see me. So I'm hoping I can deliver.
Well, with COVID, I don't know how concerts you're doing. I think everyone's just kind of now starting to put their toes in the water a little.
A little bit. And then it's sort of, there was a bit of a surge, a resurgence. So there was a bit of a pullback again. So hopefully, we'll get close to normality, in the next few months and things will start really opening up.
And I have to say, I love when I meet people who love what they do.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, and that was the challenge for you after, obviously you loved boxing and then it was like, okay, I have to find, what am I going to do now? That's something that I really enjoy, that I can get into with the same fervor and passion that I had.
And this is amazing. I have to say that when my first job acting, I do a little bit of acting now, was actually off Broadway in New York at the Irish Arts Center on West 51st in the Hell's Kitchen. And my first job, I was on the stage and I thought, because I had a real depression after boxing finished, I thought, I'm back.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, hopefully you can get to do more and more of it.
Hopefully, yeah.
Yeah, if you get that feeling. Hopefully I can get some of my projects going, for me to direct or produce, and maybe I could cast you in something.
love to.
That would be fun.
It's my last question I have to throw out because it was an important show. You were on Glee as well as a recurring character. I mean, what was that set like?
It's interesting. When people ask me, it hit me. It felt in some ways similar to our set, more so than the other shows that I've done. They were working at such a, like all engines firing, it felt like, between the crew and the cast. Like everybody was so on top of their game, and it was so, moved smooth, and it was coordinated, and the cast was great, and there seemed to be a good chemistry and vibe between all of them. So I enjoyed it immensely, and it reminded me of our show in that respect, in terms of the way everybody works so well together.
Well, you've been on so many, involved in so many different projects that have been very impactful in the entertainment industry. We're honored that you took a little time to come here and talk to us today. I know you have other commitments that you have to get to, but I hope you'll come back again, especially when your new CD comes out. I hope you'll come back and talk to us.
Definitely. And then maybe some of the movies that I've done will come out. There's one, I did a Lifetime Christmas movie. It'll be out Thanksgiving. It's called Holiday in Santa Fe. And then this other movie I did, I'm not sure. But so I'd love to come back. I really enjoyed speaking with both of you, and it'd be my pleasure. And thank you for having me.
And if I could say one more thing, I always love to ask people, is there anything that you haven't really done or have done before and would love to do again? So we put it out there in the universe.
Oh, well, I definitely want to do more directing. And so hopefully soon. And just more and more great roles as an actor, some really interesting roles have been coming to me. And, I'm hoping more and more of that continues, and even bigger and better roles, whatever. That's what I'm hoping for the most.
Wonderful.
Your range is huge in terms of an actor. So I'm confident that it'll keep coming your way. You can play anything.
Thank you.
After I saw you play that villain, and you kind of freaked me a little bit. I said, yeah, he could do anything.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
It was my pleasure. I really enjoyed it.
And may I say, what an honor to meet you and have this interview with you. Thank you so much, Don.
Oh, Seamus, it was, thank you. It was a real pleasure to meet you. And I look forward to doing this again with you. And hopefully in person, we'll get to meet as well.
Love to.
Okay.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.